AFHZY, what's your opinion of Islam as a way of life?
The President of the United States, Barack Obama, said Europe must do better to integrate its Muslim community. He said that Europe should not respond with force. In the wake of last week's terrorist attacks, he added that integration problems was not apparent in all of Europe.
There are parts of Europe in which that's not the case. And that's probably the greatest danger that Europe faces, which is why as they respond, as they work with us to respond to these circumstances, it's important for Europe not to simply respond with a hammer.
What's your opinion of Islam as a way of life? I've made videos a while ago saying I respect Islam. I still do. Just something that I've had such a hindrance, like such a block to be able to consider. I keep getting thoughts to buy like an English version of the Quran and to read it. Hopefully it's like a lot of the holy books are quite hard to read even in English translation. But if it was easy enough to read and understand, I think it would be so much development there for me to look into this. It's so weird that I have such a big block doing that. I've had this thought of, okay, just go onto Instagram and just order a Quran to your address. And I just don't because I don't know, maybe it's like facing responsibility. It's facing, there's a level of fear involved. There's a level of like hesitation, and I just kind of push it off my mind. Then I hear about Islam again and, it pops into my mind 6 months later, a year later, a month later or something. And, I see the Three Muslims podcast, they're doing bits as well. And just, you should, consider Islam, and like, it goes out of my mind.
Nobody knows what I believe in. Nobody knows who I pray to. Well, hello! Ha ha ha! I didn't see you come in. Or perhaps I should say I didn't hear you. When I'm meditating, which is one of many things I do to distract people from the question of whether or not I'm Muslim, I like to have these headphones on. And it's only partly because I'm trying to conceal my hideously deformed ears, something I normally accomplish by having this hood all the way up, don't you know? It's also because I like to brag endlessly about this thing I do called a digital detox. And for me, the detox lasts until you dumb fucks stop paying me to do it. This is a very special video we're going to do today. I mean, I'd like to think each and every one of my videos is special, but I'm asking for something a little bit special from you and you and you. Let's all imagine, let's all picture in the mind's eye that we're sitting in a circle, gathered in a circle in a certain type of mass-manufactured, highly uncomfortable plastic seat. Yes, do you see where I'm going with this now? I'm thinking of those delightful 12-step programs. Those programs that bring people together to not open up their shirts, open up their hearts and share with one another all their excuses, all their reasons for being so self-pitying, self-consumed, their justifications for their drug addiction. And by the intermingling of these excuses, it is imagined that each and every one of them stands up and walks out of that room with a renewed commitment to their own sobriety. Now, very few of you have Googled this, I'm sure. Very few have wondered, what is the success rate for these programs? Well, I wouldn't lie to you unless you paid me to. Or it turned you on and I was fucking you. Or it turned me on and you were fucking me. But in any case, I wouldn't lie to you about this. The success rate for those programs is 100%. That's why so many taxpayers' dollars go into them. Otherwise, it would be some kind of scam or cult. And people would go to jail for it. 100% success rate. Having people sit in a circle and explain to other people who feel sorry for themselves why they feel sorry for themselves, it's so devastatingly effective that the crack dealers can't sell crack on the streets anymore. And quite apart from the fact that this puts the drug dealers and the hookers out of business, Just think of what it does to the supply chain over at IKEA. They'll be running out of those uncomfortable plastic chairs. In any case, we are not gathered here today for the donuts. No. We are here to be miraculously cured by this process of sharing our excuses with other people who have in common with us the deeply disturbing, utterly immoral, and abnormal behavior that we are seeking to normalize by placing ourselves in the context of like-minded people. Now I know what you're thinking. Why do you have to show up at the JCC and sit on an uncomfortable plastic chair at all to have this magical experience? What's so magical about it? Why can't you just stay at home and watch one of innumerable documentaries about drug addicts on Netflix? As soon as I admit to you in this context that I am an addict, you cannot criticize me. You cannot find fault with me in any way. That is why addiction is so fucking popular. As soon as you admit that you're an addict, nothing is your fault. Everyone's willing to admit that they're an addict, and nobody is willing to admit that they're stupid or lazy. Food addiction, for example. It's the world's fakest addiction, but absolutely everybody is willing to own up to it.
You believe, based on your experience, this may be one of the hardest, if not hardest, addictions to overcome, and we don't take it seriously enough.
Absolutely. Harder than meth, harder than nicotine, because we have to eat.
Now, I understand why you would tell people that you're addicted to food. Oh, yes. It's rather like saying, I don't read books because I'm addicted to illiteracy. Or, I bang hotties I meet on Instagram because I'm allergic to fucking fat people. By confessing that you're a food addict, you gain everything and you lose nothing. There isn't even any stigma. It's just a never-ending cycle of excuses, a newfound source of social approval, legitimacy of other people who are going to share in your sorrows, who are going to sympathize with your plight, when the truth is, really, you're just being a lazy, self-indulgent asshole. It's not that the 12-step programs don't work. It's that food addiction isn't a real addiction, and that's why they can't be cured in this way. The problem is, food addicts are fake addicts, unlike me. I have a real addiction I'm going to let you in on, and none of you can fucking judge me just because I own up to the fact that I am an addict. Is it hot in here, or I'm just looking for an excuse to show off my chest hairs? All right, now that we're all sitting in this goddamn circle, here's the deal. I'm an addict. I'm a fucking addict. My name is Benjamin Lord, and I am addicted to atheism. It's a real addiction. You can't blame me. And also, you have to stop calling me Islamophobic. Atheism is a real addiction. People say that video games are an addiction. Hamza, over on his channel, he says video games are an addiction all the time, along with Instagram and everything else he wants to vilify as part of his digital detox agenda. Do you know anyone ever who has sucked a stranger's dick in order to get the money to play a video game? Do you know anyone who's sucking dick in order to support their Instagram addiction, instead of using their Instagram addiction in order to arrange to suck a dick, or to have their dick sucked, or both? I admit the geometry is a bit confusing, but the point is this. There are people in the streets right now sucking dick in order to pay for their next dose of cocaine, methamphetamine, you name it. Nobody is sucking dick for video games, and nobody is sucking dick for French fries. But we accept these things so easily as addictions. Atheism. People devote their lives to it. People cut off all contact with their family for it. When people can't have it, they go into a kind of withdrawal. People are sucking dick in the streets for atheism all the fucking time.
1 in 3 Americans is considered obese, a growing epidemic in this country. The American Medical Association now officially recognizes obesity as a disease.
Put simply, obesity is not a choice. Now, it's a choice. I'm choosing to put the cookie in my mouth. But it's not a choice because some people find it more difficult to say no. It's more difficult to say no it is not a choice.
We're realizing now that obesity is really a disease state, just like hypertension, just like diabetes, just like dyslipidemia. So we have to treat it as such. Obesity is a multifactorial disease state. There's genetics involved, there's environmental issues involved, and we need to address them accordingly.
Pet obesity. Pets are getting bigger. There's now an American Association for the Prevention of Obesity and Overweight in Pets. Zoo animals are getting bigger. So there's something going on that's not easy to explain. I mean, there's a couple of reasons that are pretty obvious, and it starts with genetics. But there's no question that genetics is sort of the root of the problem. So genes are part of it. Now, one of the things that we're learning about genes is, because a lot of people say, come on, this can't be the genes. Like, genes don't change in, 20, 30 years. Actually, they do. There's evidence now showing that a lot of people today are much more prone to obesity than they were before. So genes actually do change.
Right now, 2/3 of the population is either overweight or obese according to body mass index. Insurance companies are starting to catch on this as well, and they're starting to pay for obesity medicine counseling, but it is a disease.
One reason for the change is that it would reduce the stigma of obesity that stems from the widespread perception that it is simply the result of eating too much or exercising too little. Some doctors say that people do not have full control over their weight. Those against the new classification say it could lead to defining a large population as ill, who then would become dependent on drugs and surgery rather than lifestyle changes.
Wishing to prevent an avalanche of emails asking me, do people really suck dick for atheism, or do they become atheists in order to suck dick? I confess, nobody becomes a crackhead in order to become a crack whore. People get real interested in cocaine, and then they find they can't afford it, and then they start prostituting themselves in order to pay for the habit. Nobody, positively nobody, enjoys being a prostitute so much that they then decide to just use cocaine to augment their performance in order to be more competitive in their career on the stroll. Like, oh, well, God damn it. I mean, I'm working so hard out here sucking dicks, but these girls who are on cocaine, they can just keep going for hours. I better get addicted to drugs myself. Putting the cart before the horse, if you will allow me to use a non-vegan meme. It's not so much a matter of blame as it is a question of hopelessness. If you have a learning disability, people imagine you can't be educated, you can't be helped, that it can't be overcome. This is, of course, the exact opposite of the truth. Whereas, if you confess that you're an addict, we imagine that you can be transformed through therapy. You can be transformed through simply getting a new addiction to some other kind of drug that comes from a pharmacist instead of a dealer on the street. We assume that the addiction is something very different from the man himself. It's very different from those qualities of mind, like laziness and stupidity. Now, the truth is, you have some combination of stupidity, laziness, and a learning disability. And that's why you don't read books. And that's why you haven't adopted a vegan diet. And that's why you can never hold a conversation with any woman who is worth holding a conversation with. And you can only fuck prostitutes and women on Instagram who ask you to pay for an airplane ticket and a hotel and a new purse so that you don't have to fucking admit to yourself that it's prostitution. Now, the question I have to ask you is this. Before you go off on this bullshit rant about civil liberties and freedom of personal choice, do you think the world would be a better place if everyone were a Muslim or if nobody were? Do you think this would be a better planet if it were basically planet Saudi Arabia, the whole world under the rule of Sharia law, with every woman's face covered in public, with every man's penis having the end chopped off in this miserable ceremony from the Dark Ages? Would you rather live in planet Saudi Arabia or planet Las Vegas with nothing in between? Oh, yes, well, you may say it's a personal choice. It's a personal choice if people want to use cocaine or not. It's a personal choice if people want to practice the Muslim faith or not. Personal choice. Do you want to live on a planet where 100% of people are drug addicts or zero? Which would you prefer? If your parents, if your children, if everyone else you had ever known and ever would know could either be an atheist with all the depravity that entails, or would have to be a devout Muslim living under the same conditions we see now on the news, let's say from Afghanistan, which planet would you choose? Which one should be the future of planet Earth? Because don't fucking kid yourself. That is the jihad the Muslims are fighting for. They are not fighting to make Islam a personal choice the way you dumb left-wing fucks think that smoking marijuana should be a personal choice in Seattle. The way in the streets of Vancouver they have de facto legalized heroin. That's not what they're fighting for. And they are playing to win.
Don't scroll. You're going to want to hear this. About 70,000 Christians are converting to Islam every single year. Why is this? As a Christian that converted to Islam myself, I can tell you that there's so many people out there that don't even know about Islam.
You know how after 9/11, everyone started referring to Muslims as terrorists and how Islam is spread by the sword? How Muslims force their religion on people? I ask you, is it a coincidence that after all this hatred for Islam, that there are so many people every single day converting to Islam, which in result has made Islam the fastest growing religion in the world?
Now, I am not going to be a hypocrite unless you pay me to pretend to be one, or when we're fucking, it happens to turn me on. I realize full well that the Christian culture of Italy hypothetically could be just as bad as the Islam of Saudi Arabia. Hypothetically, the future of Catholic Italy could be just as dark, just as hopeless as the new dark ages we've seen arise, most recently in Afghanistan. And yet, nevertheless, I think you'd feel much more comfortable taking a beach vacation in Italy than you would in fucking Yemen, where I hear the snorkel diving is impeccable. At this stage already, most people presume that Catholicism in Italy is so corrupt, is so gloriously rotten to its core, that the future of Italy is going to look a whole lot more like Las Vegas in the 1970s than it will look like Afghanistan in 2022.
Where you belong, the sand. Las Vegas wouldn't be the same without us.
Do you remember just a few years ago, there was a Broadway musical endlessly ridiculing the Mormons, taking out the Mormon religion and showing what a fucking joke it really is? When will we ever see a Broadway musical attempt to do that to Islam?
Hello, my name is Elder Grant. It's a book about America a long, long time ago.
At this point, I begin to feel that everyone is just sitting back and waiting for the Mormons to discover irony. Like, at some point, sooner or later, they just won't be able to take their own religion seriously anymore. You could wait another 1,000 years, neither with the Mormons, nor with the Scientologists, nor with the millions upon millions of devout Muslims will it ever happen. You cannot sit back passively and wait for faith to debunk itself, wait for religion to discredit itself. Even the fucking cults that put a specific day on the calendar, say that's the day Jesus is coming back, or that's the way the world is going to end, when that day comes and goes, they keep on believing. I mean, it's a beautiful dream in its way, or even a kind of fantasy, that one day soon, all of these religions could just become a kind of relaxed, vaguely hypocritical, holier-than-thou social club. A place where people go, I don't know, to get drunk and get laid. Like the Green Party. Or the Reform Party. Or the Pirate Party. Holy shit. I'm getting horny just thinking about all these fucking doomed political causes I could go to and get my dick sucked.
Here's what I would say, that I think that we should foster a culture in which people's private religious beliefs, including atheists and agnostics, are respected. And that's the kind of culture that I think allows all of us then to believe what we want.
You may be living with the delusion that the apogee of left-wing liberal discourse is to say, you do you, baby, it's all a matter of personal choice. But it's not. It's a matter of our shared planetary fate. Do you want to live on a planet that is 100% atheist, 100% Las Vegas, or 100% Islam, 100% Sharia law? Figure out what it is you're fighting for, and then goddamn fight, old boy, because the other side is already going at it. Oh! And this brings me back to the topic of the video. Do you realize how high the stakes are with this so-called body positivity, intellect negativity nonsense? You think we can't have a planet that's 100% obese? Do you think we can't have a planet that has a rate of 0% obesity? We can. We can have one or the other, but not both. And our journey toward one destination or the other begins with our admitting to ourselves what it is we want and what it is we're willing to do to get it.